Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thought Raid, a show where we take on thoughts and find better ways of thinking about them. I'm Brandon Brown, owner of United Gamers Nations and a lay counselor, and with me today is the wonderful Tim Denock of Break the Meta and Life Coach.
It never gets old.
That's great. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's stream, where today we're going to be continuing what we started yesterday, because we realized halfway through that, my gosh, there's so much to unpack when it comes to community development. And so I really wanted to give us a second day to work this one out. And make sure that we cover community development well, because if you think about it, we really do need some good communities out there. Like, Thought Raid cannot be the only community that exists that's good. There has to be other ones, because there's so many people that exist out there that need to be reached. And so for that to be properly done, we want to equip you so that you are aware of the pitfalls that we've been through in community development, so that way you feel most equipped when it comes to all the challenges you'll face if you want to start your own community. So with that said, let me just begin and recap just a few things from yesterday in case you guys are joining us now. First thing that we covered in, again, true Thought Raid fashion is defining what a community is. And pretty much what we came to in the definition of community was that it's a group of people that is heading in a similar direction goal-wise and interest-wise. Like, you got just more than one person coming together, and they've got similar direction. And the community, it could be various different sizes. Like, a community could be a community of two between a husband and a wife, or it could be as large as a whole nation. But either way, whatever community is being developed, it's more than one person united under one cause, or one goal or interest or whatever, or not just one, but just a series of ones that they have come to be a part of and want to be a part of, typically. Although I guess you could say if you're born into a nation, that's really not a decision that you make, that just is something that happens. But hey, hopefully you might have the ability to move around from nation to nation if you don't like the one you're in. I don't know. Anyways, that's beside the point. So we looked into that. And then we took some time to kind of really develop, like, what sort of things would you want to have in preparation before you begin your community. And there was just a key things that I touched on, and then Tim touched on, at least on my part. It feels like yesterday. Yes, well, it literally was. On my part, and welcome back, by the way, was that before you start a community, it's good to have the general vision and goals that you want to move towards for your community before you start inviting people into it. Reason being, if you don't have a goal or direction for the community, when people come to join your community, they either are not going to show what it's all about and therefore not really stick, or they're going to come in and they're going to usurp whatever you think you want the community to be and move it in the direction of their vision. So if you don't have a pre-established vision of where you want to take it, could be a bit of a problem. The second thing that I brought up that was really important was, at least in my mind, I think it's good to have at least one other person helping you develop the community. Reason being is that it is very easy for us as humans to have confirmation bias or to miss specific details, and having a second person there will help you see things that you might not normally be optimal to see. So having that second person, plus it also helps you carry, like, not have all the workload of carrying the community on your shoulders. So having an equal partner with you to help you out with building the community and working things out is very important, especially the bigger the community gets. If you're planning to start an entire business, you definitely want to have other people working with you, especially if you're planning to make it a big business, because having it all on your shoulders is a lot of weight to carry. So we went through that. And then Tim, you specifically brought up the importance of, the importance of not trying to figure out all the details. Once you've got a general idea of where you want to take the community, like what's the goal of it, what are you trying to accomplish, and you've got, the basic things taken care of, don't bog yourself down trying to figure out all the logistics of running a community, because there are just many things you are not specifically going to be able to figure out until you start the community and begin exploring what it's like to have that community in the first place. So that was one of the major things I remember that you were specifically bringing up, Tim. And then we also touched on specifically, oh goodness, it touched my mind that it went whoop. What was the last thing? Crap. If it comes to me, I'll get to it. But there was a last thing. A last thing, Tim. It's bothering me. I don't remember. If it hits me, I'll have to bring it up. So, whatever that last thing was, you can probably find it in the live stream that we did yesterday. The live stream is live on YouTube. If you want to go back and find it, you can find it there. It's good. and also, you might need some sleep. It sounds like you might need some sleep, Stormy. If you haven't had sleep since yesterday at 3:30 p.m., might be a good time to, I don't know, get some sleep, unless you want to power through until it's dark again. Fair enough. But either way, so all that said, today there are 3 things I want to cover. One we began to touch on yesterday, but then realized there's a whole lot to it, which was, what are common problems you will find when you're developing a community. Another thing I want to touch on today is, as a leader, what is your role in the community? And then the last thing I want to go over is how do you handle difficult people in the community, which honestly probably could be its own segment entirely. But it's something that I love to talk about, just to kind of go over fun stories and things that we've been through in our own community development, because there's plenty of experiences where we've had difficult people. And it's really important to talk about that, because a part of having a good community means you're going to have difficult people, and you want to learn how to handle them, so that way you can best help people. If you don't learn how to handle the difficult people in the community, you're going to have a community that's only going to be as strong as the amount of strong people that there are, which usually strong people come and go. I don't know. So it's just, you want to be able to open the door to all kinds of people, both the difficult and the non-difficult, so that way you can grow as a leader, and the community can grow stronger in its robustness to handle different types of people, not just one type that's easy to deal with. So all of that out of the way, let's focus on the first question. So looking into, I don't want to know how, anyways, looking into the first one, which is, what are some common problems you will face in community development? I want to go back to that question, because there really are some, I think, core things that you will encounter when you are developing communities. And today I want to look at it from the perspective of, like, just general challenges you'll probably face that may not really always have to deal with people, but just things you have to face. And so thinking from that perspective, there will be some times in community development, and I'm just trying to jump right in here. I'm used to asking questions immediately, Tim, but I wanna just like jump in first with some ideas, and then kick a ball over to you to talk about some challenges you face, just so way we can have like what's the word? A baseline to start with. But anyways, challenges. Some of the challenges you'll face with developing a community is remembering what the vision was. I want to say that's definitely a challenge that I've faced over the time. When I first started UGN and I got to about the first couple years of it, there was some moments where it's just like you had to like remember like what were we all about, because after you've started something and you've been developing it for a while and you have all these different types of people coming in, it could be really easy to lose what the focus was in the first place. Because, like, there'll be people that will come and join the community, and they'll want to do, let's say you start a gaming community like me. Again, I started a gaming community back in 2013. And so the whole focus, we want to have a great community, okay? We want to have a place where people can feel loved and accepted, be a part of a family, that there's not a lot of drama going on that pushes people out, because there can be so much drama in communities, regardless if it's a gaming community or a sports community or a religious community. It doesn't matter. Drama exists everywhere. And you can keep drama out of your community with work. But so you got all this beautiful community started, and you have the vision, and now you've got 50 people that have joined you. Some of these people, they love video games. They also love books. So they come in, and they're like, we want to have a whole book section for our community. Cool. And then another person comes in, another group of people come in, and they're like all about, I don't know, they're the sports side of the community. They love sports games and actual sports. So you got that going on. They want to have a whole section for that community to talk about that. And then you have another group of people come in, and they're all about, I don't know, home development. And they want to come in and they want to add all of these different aspects of home development, bring that into your community. And so now you're all about gaming, but also you have this section about sports, but also you have this section about books, but also you have this section about home development. I think one of the challenges that you can face when you're developing a community is you can easily forget what the community was originally about. And it could be really easy to bog down the community with a whole bunch of different things that it wasn't originally about, and that could be dangerous. Like your individual community is designed to reach out to a specific type of people. Like if you look into advertisement, you look into the world of marketing, you're going to be asked, who is your target demographic? And that's still a thing with community. You don't want to necessarily push people out that have nothing to do with your community, but at the same time, if you keep adapting to every different type of person that comes in, eventually you can lose the original focus of the community, of its original interests. And that may not be a bad thing if you genuinely find that everyone coming in is about one specific area. But in general, if that's not what you started for, I think one of the biggest challenges you can face is forgetting what you were all about. And that can weigh on a person. Just in general, if you're thinking about personal development and you get so interested in everyone else's lives that you forget what you're interested in, it could cause an identity crisis. In the same way, communities can go through identity crisis if you don't remember and keep before you what the vision is. One of the things that I was taught quite often when I was in Impact University was that you need to cast the vision often. And by the time people start getting annoyed with you casting the vision, that's about the time when you realize that it's been cast sufficiently enough that people are starting to get it. And that's kind of always stuck with me. Not to say that, like, if you're starting a community, you should always have a meeting with everyone, like, today, this is what the vision is. No. But it's really important to have that in front of yourself and in front of the members that come to, like, work with you. Like, we're talking leaders that want to work with you. Because when the day comes and you have a lot of people in your community and they're all doing different things, this will help you decide how to streamline the community in such a way that it's really hitting hard with the people that are there and they've signed up for what you started, and you're not getting lost into all the other things that it could be, and it's losing its effectiveness. Because I keep thinking of like all these intersectional points that go in with this. But like, again, when it comes to like, if you were developing a skill and you were doing all these other things none related to the skill, it's going to be really hard to develop that one particular skill. So again, thinking about communities, this point is going to be so covered. I'm just realizing all these aspects to it. I don't know. It's just really important. That's one challenge you'll probably face with community development. What are your thoughts, Tim? Help me out here. I'm tired of going over one specific point.
I think something I was thinking about as you were talking was just about how different people will come in with different perspectives. And some of them are going to be good. Some of them are going to be bad. Some of them you need to consider. Some of them you don't.
Yeah.
But how do you do that? And I'm just thinking about times where I've tried to do that. And I've given too much value. Is that how I want to say that? I've given too much consideration to the weight of a recommendation, and I've received it as something that, I have to do this. When you have 4 or 5 people giving you input and thinking, okay, well, I have to do this, like instead of weighing it and mulling over, okay, does this align with where I want to go or not? Like, how do you do that, Brandon? How do you think people should navigate receiving input and feedback, and how to, I guess, reconcile what to keep and what to discard?
Yeah. Well, again, I think that's great, because that goes along with what I've been talking about just a moment ago with what is your vision and purpose for the community. If someone is bringing to you a critique of it should look like this or that, if it does not fit with what you originally designed or planned for the community, that's something that you don't really have to put as much weight on. Now, if it's not so obvious as to whether or not it would fit or not with the community, with what you have for the vision, I would consider how the person is bringing it to you and how you are emotionally reacting to the suggestion. Because if someone is coming to you spitefully about you have to do this or whatever, and it's just like some kind of command, no, I don't have to do that. If the community is already functioning properly and you're coming at me and you're attacking me with this, which sometimes happens, hey there, Deathbane, then this boundary. You don't get to talk to me that way. However, if someone is bringing something to you and you're feeling super insecure about it, keep that in mind, how you're feeling, because that insecurity may be a sign that there doesn't need to be a change. They're just they're touching on something that you're not certain on, and it's making you feel insecure. And it's not, because like what happens is, I think insecurity clouds judgment, makes it really hard to figure out what you're doing and stuff, because now it's like, oh no, I have been doing this or that. If you're in a good place with community development, everything is by invitation / it's inventive. You can be inventive and creative in making the community better. When suggestions are brought to you, it should empower you to like, oh yeah, okay, I can do that. Oh, I like that idea, whatever. Not, oh my God, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. Like, that's like, maybe there might need to be changes in those places, and it's good to take that to Jesus and be like, what do you think about this? But it has been my experience that the minute anxiety gets interjected into it, probably just a distraction. I feel like it's a way of inviting comparison, and making something that should be easy and fun and exciting to adapt and grow and better the community into something that's dreadful and exhaustive. So that's my thoughts. Keep in mind how they're coming to you. How are you feeling? Stuff of that nature when they're bringing you the idea. Because at the end of the day, if they're bringing you something, you are the community leader. You get to decide what gets vetoed or what gets accepted in your community.
Mhm.
And you have to keep in mind the whole of the community and its overall health. So if someone's coming to you and they're like, well, you should do this or that, well, hold up, bucko. This is my community. I'm the president here. Like, you gotta bring ideas to me. Don't tell me what I should be doing with this
Mhm.
community. Like, no.
Well, in that vein, I think it's really important also to have a schedule of when you create an open forum to cast vision and receive feedback
Yeah.
because, you know, I've been in situations where you would establish something and then, like when I worked for GameStop, we would say, okay, well, here's going to be our focus for this quarter. Here's what I need you guys saying and doing. Here's what you should be learning. Here's what I expect from you. And if a certain amount of time goes by and you don't refocus, people just think, okay, well, they're not focused on it. People are going to focus on what you're focused on. So if your whole goal is creating relationships, if your whole goal is teaching something, if your whole goal is selling something, whatever your group or your community is doing, it's really important for you as the leader to routinely and consistently say, okay, guys, it's been 30 days. Let's refocus. Let's redefine our purpose. Let's talk about what we've learned. What have you guys seen that I might not have seen? What are your issues? What are you facing? And that's how you build those relationships with people too. People need to feel empowered, and they typically only do that one of two ways: if they feel the freedom to do so, or if they feel like they need to bulldoze you to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very important. That's where it's necessary. It's to have a team when you're doing community development. Like, one of the problems, here's another one. Another problem that you will face in community development is, and especially if it's a good community, there will probably come a point where you're going to need to have a team. Especially if it gets beyond, like, I would say, like so in the instance of you having the Wednesday night groups, you've always had your wife there to help you as a team member to kind of help things. She can help with the women's side of things. You can help with the guys, but she's always been there. She's been your constant help in community development. In UGN, which is a much more it's much more, what's the word? I would say professional, but it's a gaming community. I don't know. Whatever. It's big. I have a handful of admins, like people who are at a very high level of authority. I have another handful of community leaders that kind of help with the day-to-day interactions with people, and then I have moderators below them that can help with instances. And so periodically, I will have meetings with them where we figure out the state of the union, essentially. How is UGN doing? What problems are we facing? Are there problematic people that we need to be aware of? Stuff like that. And I give them the opportunity to make suggestions and stuff of how we can improve. How can we, make UGN better? Stuff like that. So I think it's really good to empower the people under you, working with you, to bring the community to better levels. I was more so thinking about, like, as if a random person came to you and brought ideas, because I feel like that's also important, is to consider the proximity. If someone has been invested in your community for a while and they bring to you a suggestion, that's going to have some weight. If someone has been working with you and they're not just a community member, but they're like a moderator or an admin or something, or they have a place of a position of authority, and they say something, that should carry some weight. If they're a partner with you, that should carry a lot of weight of what they're bringing to you. And in all things, it's important to receive criticism, suggestions, and ideas with humility. So, like, all that I'm discussing right now, when I was talking about, like, if it's making you feel anxious, keep that in mind. I was also coming from the perspective of, you need to have humility in the process, because if there is no humility, it doesn't matter what people bring to you, it's not gonna land well because of the pride.
Yeah, I think it's also really good to well, something that I saw Brandon do a while back was he hosted a meeting with his leadership group. And he didn't tell them what the reasoning for them getting together was, but everybody that showed up without a reason to show up, just because they were loyal or because they respected his authority, or they had enough, I guess, insight or whatever to want to do that, he rewarded them what was like a $5 or $10 Steam gift card.
$10.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, because you know it's really difficult to lead a community when you have people that aren't willing to follow. And
Yeah.
not specifically like, okay, I'm looking for followers, but people that come into your community saying, hey, I want to help lead. I want to help do this. I want to take care of this department for you or whatever. And they're not submitting to your authority. You look at that from the position of, oh, well, I'm the leader of this. Or you could look at it from the position of, well, I'm the leader of this, and you're not the leader of this, and you're helping me with this. And I'm giving you this position because I trust you. So let's ascertain why you're not being submissive to what I need you to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another problem that you will eventually face, is you will eventually have people that will join the community who might join your ranks, but they're not really invested. And one of the challenges you're going to face is you're going to need to figure out how much you can trust a person, especially if they're stepping beyond just being a community member. Like there's a certain degree of trust you need for them to be a part of the community, which is just pretty low and standard. But if someone wants to go from just a community member to a leader within the community member, or someone who's volunteering and helping, then there needs to be a little amount of scrutiny that needs to be brought into of like, okay, are you invested in the community and are willing to put the time necessary to do your position? Do you support the vision of the community? Are you integral? Like, what are people saying about you? Like, am I hearing a lot of, because if you are leading a community, everything eventually flows through you. You will hear this person said this or did this person whatever, blah blah blah, and so you're gonna have, and sometimes it'll float up naturally to you. Sometimes you'll have to go searching for it. But either way, regardless if it came to you or you have to ask about it to one of your people, you want to check and see what's the integrity of this person when they're not being like, when they're not like, I'm not around. Because like people will act one way when you're there, and sometimes they will act another way when you're not there. And so if you are considering someone who wants to step up and volunteer, but you're hearing from your leaders or you're hearing from other community members, oh, this person did this, this, and this, don't brush that off. Keep that in mind before you jump in with them and allow them into a position. And then once you have allowed them into a position of authority, may I suggest that you begin them one step at a time on the rope. If you have multiple levels of leadership and responsibility, don't necessarily let them go from the beginning straight up to the top immediately. Like, there are very few people that are absolutely trustworthy that can just skip all levels of transition straight to leadership. I've only known one person. There is only one person in my community that has actually handled that well, and he has since then been way worthy of the position that he's in. But everyone else, for the most part, has had to just work the way up. What? Everyone else sucks? No! Not necessarily.
Brandon, as you're talking, I'm just thinking about, when your group or your community is somewhat smaller, it's easier to control that process, and just micromanage, because to a degree that's necessary. But as you get bigger, you reach that critical mass point where you kind of have to give up control. Yeah. And it's really scary, especially if you're a person like me, where it's like you look at the details of everything and you want it to be so good because you put so much of yourself into it, and you feel like it represents you, but giving up that control to somebody else to represent you, super risky, super scary.
Yeah. Yeah, and that comes into another issue that you want to be aware of when you're developing a community, speed of which it grows. Okay, I don't understand why some communities just woo, they go from 0 to 1,000 people overnight. I don't know what causes that to happen. I'm still wondering that. In my world, it's always a slow walk upward when it comes to like how big the community is. But regardless of whether you're the type of person who has a community that explodes immediately or it's a slow grow like mine, there are many things you can do alone, but survival is not one of them. The bigger the community gets, the more you need to delegate and have leadership under you. That is super important. So with Thought Raid, I have been really wanting to engage you guys more than we have. Like, we've been having consistent broadcasts every week, same time. It's great. But I really, there's a burden on my heart to have more ways that for those of you who are part of the community, that we can have more ways of engaging you. That more ways of like that are not just broadcasts. So like, let's say you're going through a rough time. You want to talk about this rough time. You don't want this rough time broadcasted all throughout Thought Raid. That's fine. I would like to have some leaders to come and help me with having small group for Thought Raids. That way you can come be a part of like a Zoom meeting or something of that nature, or a meeting we use Discord, on Discord, where you can come and talk unbroadcasted what you're going through, and we can have a good time that way. As the community gets bigger, it's really important to have people working with you to help reach the people that are there. If you have a lot of people and not a lot of team members and leaders, there are people that are just going to fall out that maybe shouldn't. And so like the bigger something is, the more it needs to bud, so to speak. Like every bud representing another leader inside the community's branch that is able to blossom and reach that group of people so that people don't fall through the cracks. Now, granted, you know, there's only so much you're going to be able to do. I don't think that you should just, in proportion to the amount of people coming in, that you should like, okay, we have to find exactly these amount of leaders, because leaders are hard to come by. Like truly good people that are integral, they know what they're doing, they, they have ideas, support the vision. It takes time to find people like that. So if you just quickly throw in a person to a position just so you can catch these people, you could hurt a lot of people in the process. And it would probably be safer to let them go find another community that's not so full to the brim.
And you know, Brandon, if I could say something on that
go
too.
for it.
The scary thing about that is, because I've seen this in my career and in my personal life in so many walks, you know, that a lot of times people will put people in positions of leadership that aren't leaders because they know that those people will be dependent on them for guidance, right? But really the people that are the best leaders are people who are going to outgrow those positions sooner or later. And that's scary for some people, because they think, I'm going to put somebody in leadership here, and then I'm going to pour all this investment into them and time, and then just when they get good, they're going to go off and do their own thing. And I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
But that's the thing, though. Think about it in life, that real good, healthy relationships in general, like if you empower someone to be themselves, you love them to be themselves, and you don't try to control them, that's where you get long-lasting, good, strong relationships. They might move away from you, they may have to go other places and do things, but at the end of the day, if they were back with you, they're yours, because you've given them the space to be themselves. You have empowered them over the time that you had with them and everything. In the same way, you want that for your leaders. You want leaders that can eventually break off and do their own thing and be able to help other people, because the world is so full of, there are 7 billion people and growing on this planet, and the only way you're going to be able to get a fraction of them is to empower people to not need you. But that doesn't mean that you'll lose them, because at the end of the day, that person who has to break off because they've become strong enough and built up enough, they can still at some point be like, they could say, oh, this person helped me get started, and that can, and in the end term, like putting on some future spectacles here, that could long term some future calls, whatever. That sounds weird. Anyways, I know. Anyways, down the road, that could really turn to bless you and your community.
Yeah, I think, one of the dangers there, since we're still talking about the dangers of building community, is that, and I guess one of the red flags you should be watching out for is, do you want your leaders to get to the point where they can leave? And if the answer is no, then a question you might ask yourself is, am I finding identity in what this is doing for me instead of what this is doing for others? Because if you're leading a community for what it can do for you, it's going to fail and you're going to hurt people. And you're always going to be frustrated, because when people know that you're just for yourself, you can't hide that.
Right.
They can smell it a mile away. So, if that's you, I would be very careful. And, maybe we could talk about what you do from there. Because, I know I've definitely been in that position, and it's not fun.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, if you hit a place where you recognize that this community has been built off of selfish ambition, it doesn't necessarily right away mean that the community must go away. Like, oh, disband this. I've had this wrong the whole time. Because if it's gotten to a certain degree of growth, to just cut that thing off, like, one, it won't probably just immediately die anyways, especially if it's healthy and you've just recognized you've had minor forms of, oh, this is about me. But two, there are still, the minute you recognize it was done for selfish ambition, there's still real people in that community with real needs. And they are getting those needs met through the community that you have started. So if you, in that moment, recognize that this is just a very unhealthy space for you to have this community, my suggestion is to find someone who is able to carry the torch that you are not able to carry of the community, so that way the community doesn't immediately die without, because there was several things that was ingrained into me in Impact University. One was growth without change was impossible, and repetition is the motor of learning. But a big one was everything rises and falls on leadership. So if the leader is cut out, that's like a chicken with its head cut off. It just, the community is like, it just runs around, doesn't know what to do with its life as it slowly dies.
Oh man, that makes me think about Forrest Gump. Have you ever seen that movie?
I have seen parts of it, yes.
There's that part where he just takes off running, and he runs for like 2 years straight, and then he gets this huge following.
Yes.
Yeah, and then he just stops, and he's like, I'm pretty tired. I think I'll go home now. And all the people are like, well, what are we supposed to do? Well,
yeah.
It's like he had all these people following him, and when he stopped, it's like, well, what do you do without your leader? The person that's like showing you which way to go.
Yeah. So if it is possible, I would first and foremost suggest trying to, and if you don't want the community after realizing just your wrong intentions, I would suggest finding someone to carry the mantle that can continue on. Because if you started a good thing, if the community is good, like, it's not like you might have started for selfish ambitions, but the community and the fruits of it is healthy, then I would want to find someone to take my place. If it's a matter of I don't want to give up the community, but I recognize that I started with selfish ambition, then it would be good to, talk that out with some people, and to apologize for some of that nature, because people can, like you said, people can sense fakeness. So to be able to be humble. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, and guys, that a lot of you, and myself included, because once again, I've been there, I've totally done this. When you know that you've messed up in front of people that you should have been leading, or you've led them with selfish ambitions, or just all this stuff where it's like, I've not been a good leader. People are still watching you as an example. You're going to be a good example or a bad example. There's no in between, right? And so when they're watching you, in that even when you fail, they're watching to see how you fail, because 85%, or actually 80%, some statistic out there I read somewhere, 80% of what you do is not based in success. It's how you deal with failure. You're only going to succeed 20% of the time, and so teaching people how to succeed through failure, how to process failure, how to not attach their identity to the failure. Gosh, that's so important. And when people see you fail and admit it and say, hey, I'm separating my identity from the failure, and my goal is this, and because I'm not attached to this as my identity, I submit myself. Guys, I'm broken, I messed up, I need your help, I've messed up, can you help me, because I need your help. And man, that is the mark of something magical. When you have people that are following you, that are willing to let you fail, and they're going to support you when you're weak, man, that's how you identify leaders. That's how you encourage and inspire people to rise up. That's how you give people the opportunity to use the gifts that God has given them.
Yeah, let me just put this out there. Remember this. I feel like most people are more hurt to discover without you telling them that there's something wrong going on than for them to be told by you that there's something wrong going on. Like it hurts me more for someone to pretend like everything is all right and never talk about it, and then their sins come forward, than it is for them to come forward and talk about their sins to me. Like, I have so much more patience. There have been people in my life that it would have been so much, I would have had no problems with them if they had just told me, hey, I failed in this area and it was bad. Cool, we all fail. Not a big deal. But then I've had some people that are like, they don't do that. And then I find out about the problem secondhand. It's just like, dude, the issue is not a big deal. But the fact that you hid it this whole time is. And I don't know how to trust you right now, because if you're not willing to share this with me, what other things are you hiding? It creates distrust, and it damages the community to live a double life.
Well, the other thing is, people know that you're human. They know you're going to fail. If there's somebody that's perfect, like a case in point, the Duggars. You remember that show that used to be on TV, the reality show about the Christian family that was so perfect?
It had like 19 kids or something?
Something ridiculous. Nobody's going to be perfect. Nothing is going to be perfect. So if people think that you're perfect, or if there's this facade that you have to maintain of perfection, people are going to start thinking, man, what are they hiding?
Yeah. I mean, and I think the reason why people get upset in the first place is because people feel continuously whether someone's being a fake or not. But a lot of people who are trying to be trusting will ignore what they're feeling and try to believe what this person is saying, rather than just being beat up by the constant feeling of something weird is going on. So when the reality hits, and they recognize that this is actually not what they've been trying to convince themselves the whole time, it could feel as an ultimate betrayal.
Mm-hmm. And beyond the betrayal, too, it's like, even if people aren't aware of that, or they don't acknowledge it, like you said, even if they feel it, but they're like, well, I mean, this must not be true because I trust this person. They seem like everything's perfect. You set a ridiculous standard that they're never going to achieve. And so you're building a community, and you're building this environment where people are going to feel like they can't do it, because they can't. Nobody can be perfect.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why testimony is so important. That's why it's so important. And why, if you look biblically, God is made strong in our weakness, and it's crazy. It's like the things you struggle with the most are the things he uses the most to help other people.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, just thinking about my own testimony, things that I've been through, the struggles that I've had, have been areas where I've been able to strongly talk about. I'm like, hey, here's what I've been through. Here's how I'm handling. Let me help you. Like, I've been through this. I've experienced this. So my weakness has become a strength point for God to utilize and help others. So yeah, but you're pretty sure you're perfect, Deathbane. Okay.
I don't know. I've seen your KDA in League of Legends. What's that win rate? What's that ranking?
So yeah, so these are some really good things that you can and there are plenty of other things that with time we'll have to bring. It's perfect. There are plenty of other things that we'll have to bring out over time because there's just so many pitfalls you could run into in community development. But since we kind of touched at this in points a couple times, I want to just look at it one more time, and that is, as the leader, what is your role in the community? Because that needs to be defined. As a leader, what is your role in the community? And there's some consistent themes across the different things you can lead, and then there are some nuances. I really think here are some things that I've just kind of learned through my own having community and stuff. Your job as a leader is not to micromanage. The fastest you can get away from micromanaging, the better, honestly. So, and the only way you're going to really be able to get away from micromanaging is, again, and we've talked about this, having leaders under you. Having volunteers, leaders, moderators, admins, whatever you will call them, and whatever their position of authority is, the more you can bring, and I'm talking taking your time to be able to make sure that they have integrity, all that kind of stuff. But once you have found some worthy people to help you in growing the community, let them take care of certain things, because I think one of the biggest temptations as a leader is to see, I want this to be done this way. I want this to be done this way. I want that to be done that way. And then to get them all done. And before you know it, you're going to be burnout. Like, I'm actually finally hitting a place with Thought Raid where I am hitting my max capacity as a leader of what I can do. And it's wonderful. I love it. I love the fact that I'm getting to this good stride where I have plenty of stuff for me to do. And now I really need to delegate. So I would say the first thing to look at is you really want to get away from micromanaging. Micromanaging will stress the crap out of you. I know it feels good in the moment to get things done the way you want them to be done, but at the end of the day, it will drain the crap out of you, especially the bigger the community is. In the beginning, not so much of a big deal. A lot of things are just going to have to rest on your shoulders because the community is small and you're not going to have a lot of people to help you. But the bigger it gets, the less you should be doing when it comes to micromanaging specific aspects. You have to really define what are your role responsibilities as the leader, and then not put your fingers into other places that should be someone else's responsibility.
That's a really weird way to put that, Brandon.
I mean,
this is a really good topic. It makes me think of when I used to work at Food Lion. That was my first job. I was a bag boy at Food Lion. I would always hear, I guess that's where it began. Maybe it wasn't just Food Lion. Maybe it was just like the cumulative banter of being in the workplace. There would always be people who were the followers, the employees who would talk bad about management, and then there would be management that would talk poorly about the employees. And, they would say things like, oh, this person did this thing and they didn't deserve this, or they're doing it this way. And, there's always this situation where it seems like somebody has been given a position due to, tenure, right? So somebody's been working there forever, or somebody's just been in the group forever. And it's like, well, I've been here the longest. I deserve to be in leadership, right? And they get that position of leadership, but they don't change up their skill sets. They try to lead people from the position of being an employee, and you can't do that. Being a follower and being a leader requires two completely different skill sets. And if it's not just the skill set, it's a perspective shift that you have to change. Yeah. You cannot lead an organization. You cannot lead a group. You cannot lead a community if you're doing all the work of the person who's on the bottom. Now, it's important to understand empathetically what that's like, so that you can relate to that person and understand the limitations and not give them too much responsibility for their position. but you can't run all over the when you form a business. You have the CEO, then you have to have a CPA, then you have to have the payroll. Well, I guess CPA and payroll is the same, and taxes and all that stuff. Then you need an administrative assistant, marketing. You need people that are going to do all the the tangible work. Web admin. I mean, there's all these little tasks, right? And if you are trying to do all that, you're going to run thin, and then you can't cast vision. You can't maintain vision because you're so focused on just making sure all the foundations are in place.
Yep.
Right. And part of being a leader and leading a community is learning to give that up. And I say learning because you have to learn to give that up.
You do.
And be okay with teaching people. That's your role. Your role as a community leader isn't making the community survive.
Yeah. If it's all on your shoulders, like I said, many things you can do alone. Survival is not one of them. Because it'll burn you out, and then you'll get angry at people. You'll be angry with yourself. You'll have a lot of pride, or a lot of anxiety, or a lot of stress in general, and it's just not worth it. Leaders need breaks. They need to rest. They need to be able to spend time with family in between times where they're working and stuff, just as much as the average employee would. Like, it doesn't change. You don't become a magical person when you become a leader. Like, you still have your needs and limitations. So that's your role as a leader, is to get out of micromanagement as fast as you can, but as safely as you can also. As a leader, I think it's also important that you have a good eye for leadership. That's going to be really important in the beginning, but later on, you need to be able to cast that to the leaders that are under you, so they can do the same thing that you're doing to replicate that in other people. So to take the time to get rid of biases, throw that out. You don't want to yeet. Just get that out. Anyways, because again, going on with getting away from micromanaging, you want to be able to find people that are consistent, people that are they're self-driven, they have good integrity, stuff like that. And sometimes you can help develop that in a person, but you also don't want to spend a lot of time, like, again, depending on how big the community is, like, the amount of time you're going to have to be able to do certain things is going to become limited. So you want to be able to recognize talent and work on, like, seeing what that is. So taking time to, like, learn from different types of people, so that way you can see different types of talent. If you just surround yourself with the same kind of person, you will only recognize the same kind of talent. But if you surround yourself with different types of people, with different types of mindsets, you'll be more equipped to recognize different types of talent that can help take on different positions of leadership to help you grow. So developing an eye for talent is important, I feel like, being a leader. And that also really does require humility. Oh my God. If you learn anything, a leader should also be the most humble person possible in a community. Really needs to be. Like, the way the kingdom of God operates is upside down. We as leaders should be servants to the people. If you are starting a community to serve you, stop. Your job to be a community leader is to serve others. So to be humble, to be able to learn from others. Yes, with your humble bragging, Deathbane. It's really important to keep that in mind. Here in Thought Raid, we're here to serve you, to help you to become the best you can be by sharing with you the struggles that we face and what we've learned to face them. And that is a very important goal as a leader, is you are serving your leaders and your community. So it's very important to have no space for pride in your heart. Not to say that you're not proud of your work or proud of your leaders or whatever. I'm not saying that you don't take pride in that, but to get to a place where you begin to self-inflate yourself beyond your actual self-worth or value, or staying away from self-hatred, also the other side of the spectrum, which is still very selfish-minded. Like, you don't want to think of yourself too highly, also not too under, like, because there is a specific consistent you, and it's good to recognize that and to be humble, so that way when people do bring ideas to you, you can easily accept them. When you see different types of people, you can accept them. Like, it's just, humility is the glue that sticks different important things of being a leader to you, I guess, so to say. I don't know. It keeps things together. Keeps the community together, really.
Yeah. Brandon, as you're talking, I think being a leader, it's a lot easier than people think. And honestly, it's one of those things where you have to slow down to speed up. Because I know that when I was an employee or when I was a follower, there was so much new stuff to learn. There was so much, like, the situation and the process seemed much bigger than me. But once you go through the ranks and you get up there, you start to think to yourself, oh, well, I know how to do all this now. I see the vision. I know where to go. And then it's like, well, what do I do next? Do I just stay up here forever? And I was reading a book by Dr. John Maxwell forever ago. And he put it in a place he phrased it in a way that made a lot of sense to me. It was super simplistic. And he said, as a leader, your goal is to make yourself replaceable as quickly as possible. Right?
Yeah.
And that's scary for a lot of people because, once again, it's really easy to find identity in how far we've gotten. But guys, once you've made yourself replaceable, that means that when you step away from it, you don't just leave a void there. You leave somebody in the place that has received value from you, that's replicating what you put into them, and you're teaching them to do the same. That's the goal of a leader. So when you look in your wake of the trail that you've blazed, you should see just person after person after person after person after person that's doing the same thing of investing into people.
Yeah.
And that's the quality of a leader. I mean, look at Jesus, right? What did he do? He was walking through the earth, and he spent his entire childhood learning what he learned, and then he became a carpenter, and then he started teaching in the synagogues and all that stuff. And then when he began his ministry, 33 years of age, he went out and he found disciples. He said, drop your nets and follow me. And for a time, those people followed him, and he taught them how to love through parables. He spoke to them, related to them, didn't give them more than they could handle, gave them exactly what they needed to be challenged. And the people that came to him and said, teacher, can you explain this to me? When he was giving the parables to all those people, it was his disciples, the people that willingly chose to follow him and seek more, because the Bible says, knock and the door shall be open, seek and you shall find. Right? So when they came to Jesus and said, Jesus, would you explain this parable to me? He said, oh, okay, well, here's what it means. And he poured more of himself into them. And then towards the end of his ministry, he said, go out, preach, talk, explain things, and people receive you, dust off your sandals, just keep moving, go out there and do what I've done.
Yeah.
Show me to people, right? And that's the crazy thing. And now look at it. Now there are people who have taken that and done bad things with it, but there's so much good that has come from one man loving people, and he's taught a good portion of the world to do just that. That's the power of leadership.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, also, like, any company that's existed more than I would say roughly around 50 to 60 years, they've probably gotten to a place where they've learned how to replicate leadership in others so that it consists from generation to generation. Like, that doesn't just happen. Oftentimes companies die with the death of the leader that founded it because everything rested on their shoulders. But just thinking about, just a moment to honor you, Tim, like with the community that you're doing the Wednesday night thing. Yes, like
Me?
Yes, you. Like, you started you really started and continued the whole Wednesday night group thing when Zach had to step away, and you developed it so well that when you're going through what you're going through right now, where you want to take a step back, it's still existing. Like, you have developed leadership within Like, you developed the leadership skills of Lori. You developed the leadership skills of myself, of other people. And so now, when you need to take a step back and rest and enjoy other people for a time, whether you want to come back to it or not, it's still going. What you started hasn't stopped. What on earth? That's a new sound. I don't want that sound popping up again. Thank you. Anyways.
Well, and that's something new that I've been learning too. And honestly, I learned it from people like Zach. Because if you remember at the end of the potlucks, what would he do? He would say, "Hey guys, we're meeting at Bad Daddy's. We're doing this thing," and the dude wouldn't even show up. There would be nights where we would all go to his house. He's like, "Yeah, the key's here," or wherever it was, or somehow we got in, and we'd all be at Zach's place. And we're like, "Well, where's Zach? Oh, he's at work." The heck? And I'm sure he was taught that somewhere. Probably Jesus.
But yet consistently in Zach's groups, you could trust that you're going to be surrounded by good people. They're going to operate well together. There didn't need to be any sort of moderation to happen. It just worked well. He set the atmosphere of what is and is not acceptable in his communities, and then he didn't have to even be there to enforce it. That it was already well established, and the people that came, you could pretty much guarantee that we're going to work well, and at the end of the day, you can enjoy it with or without Zach. And that's the same case with you. You started something that was really good, and now with or without you, it's going to continue, and people are going to still be blessed, and they're going to still learn about Christ, and they're going to still, work together and be authentic. Like, the authenticity that has been fostered with your community is still happening in the community that now is being hosted with Lori and oh gosh, Lucy. Thank you. I keep thinking Lolly, but that's not it. It was Lucy.
And Brennan, it's weird because I've been through this so many times before. Every time you go through it, there's always that test. And once again, John Maxwell has a book called The Leadership Test. And it's that test, it's the opportunity for you to exchange the mantle, but also rip your identity off of it. And that's always, I won't say always, but it's frequently, well, in my situation, in my circumstance, it's always been very uncomfortable and difficult to do because, if you've done stuff where you've challenged yourself or done stuff, especially when you think I'm purposed to do this and then you pass it on, there's that hesitation of, oh man, is it time? Is this what I should be doing? I feel weak. Are the people that I'm passing this to, are they qualified? If they're qualified, are they gonna are they gonna shepherd it the way that I did? You go through all these thoughts, and I feel like every time that happens, or every time there's been the opportunity for this to happen, that's how it's happened for me.
Well, the biggest thing is that every leader runs the risk. And I guess we're going back to that first one we were going over today. And this will be the last thing, and then I'll close it out, and then we'll have to come back to the last question again. Like, my God. I mean, it works because it's probably going to be its own session in general. It will be its own session in general. I'm planning on doing this, if not next week, then the week after. But every leader runs the risk of turning their community into an idol for themselves. And God does not like idols. Idols are not healthy for humanity. It just is not. And so periodically, your community can become your savior. Like, because that's what UGN became for me. It was the first thing that popped into my life that gave me passion and direction, and it gave me a purpose and everything. And I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. I have finally found it. And in 2018, it had become an idol. And it became the thing that I was banking on, that God was going to provide for me through. Because granted, he gave me promises regarding UGN. He straight up did. So it's not like I just fabricated this out of nowhere. But at that point, UGN, United Gamers Nations, became an idol for me, and I was running myself ragged trying to force it into something that could financially sustain me. And I was anxious most days and maybe slightly depressed. I don't know, just whatever. But I was just at my wit's end. And then I realized I needed to give that up. And God kind of brought that forward, that I needed to put it on the proverbial altar. That no one, I had to recognize that no one was there to help me grow it to where I wanted it to go, and I wasn't getting any vision for it, and that it just wasn't the right time, and it needed to be out of my hands. And so once I finally did that, and I began to focus on those that were around me for a time, it kept going. And that's the thing. Like if your community is meant to stand the test of time, and it was started for the right reasons, and it's something that God has blessed, if you can let it go, and it doesn't go anywhere, and it continues to grow, then you started a good thing. But if if the point comes where you have to let it go, and you let it go and it dies, then be glad, because then you started something that wasn't meant to be, or it wasn't meant to be for long. At least maybe it was meant to be for a season, but now there's something better in store. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're developing community, is that you may start something that is good for a time, but there are better things in line. And so there comes a point where you're going to have to put the community, all of your hopes and dreams and plans for it, on the altar. And when I say on the altar, I mean you have to be willing to let go of it. The whole statement, if someone loves you, if you let them go, they'll come back to you, kind of thing. You got to be willing to do that, and you have to be willing to do it not with a hope that it will come back, because then that's still not letting go of it. You have to 100% let go of it at some point, with the idea that it may not come back, and it may be burnt up, and it may be done at that point. But there comes a point where, so that it does not become an idol in your life, that you put the community into God's hands. You let go of the community, whatever terms you want to use, because that way it doesn't have a place in your heart that prevents you from growing, because you have everything wrapped up into that. And so I really want to put that out there. It's like, be prepared that there will become moments of times where you might have to let go of the community and see what happens, and just keep in mind that it may die at that moment, or it may live. But whatever the case is, it has to be let go of, because otherwise your goal is to, like, at the end of the day, regardless of what you're trying to build, you have still the rightness between you and God. Still, you want to, God is going to fulfill you more than a community will. At the end of the day, he should be your everything. And so you don't want the community to be that. If you hold on to something more than you hold on to God, anything less than God is imperfect. It's not going to satisfy you in the same way. But if you look at it from a secular perspective, taking care of yourself, if you hold on to a thing more than you take care of yourself, like, it's going to run you ragged. Like, communities are full of imperfect people and a lot of responsibilities, and you have to have punctuated periods of time where you're able to let that go, so you can focus on yourself and to heal from the wounds that inevitably will come from community development. Because there are wounds. There will be moments where you'll have resentments and fears and worries and all this kind of stuff, and the only way to scrape that out is to let go.
And that's, I hate to bring this back to Jesus so frequently,
but it's so important.
If you think about what happened to Jesus when he died on the cross, he essentially said, oh, well, I mean, he obviously didn't choose it. That's just what happened. And that was just his whole reason for coming. But when he went to the cross, he was essentially giving his ability to walk around and talk to people. But he said to his disciples, I'm leaving. I'm going to leave you with a helper, and he left the Holy Spirit for everybody. I just think that's kind of interesting how he, in his perfectness, left, but he still left a piece of him inside of all of us. That way we could make decisions. We would have the freedom to fail. We would have some way to always go back and say, okay, well, what's right and wrong? How do I feel about this? And that's just so special, just the fact that he gave us the freedom of choice, and he didn't make us do anything. He never makes us do anything. He set the example. He said, this is what love looks like. And then walking in the fruits of the Spirit is essentially walking in the leadership of Jesus, you know? And the fact that he's able to leave and allow us to decide whether or not to follow the Holy Spirit, that's exactly what we have to do in communities. It's like, well, I've set the example. I'm believing in you. I'm loving you, which is expecting the best, hoping for the best, having faith in you, not keeping record of wrongs. It's like, oh my goodness, that's so crazy, and it's so hands off. It's every bit of leadership and expecting for that to happen and hoping that will happen rest in the concept of just giving things up, which the Bible says those who find their lives lose it, and those who give up their lives find it. I don't know, I'm just connecting those dots.
Yeah, things that you hold on too tightly to, that becomes your identity, and it's a poor identity. You are not your job. You are not your community. You are not your sexuality. You are not your whatever where you want to attach to yourself. That's not your identity. The people hold white knuckle onto things, and as a leader, it's really easy to hold on to your community and have your community become your identity, and then you're reduced. You are reduced to a community when you do that. And so to become dynamic again, to be more than just your community, you have to let go of it and be hands off in that area. Like, there's a time where you have to build things and you have to work on stuff, but then there's a time where you have to let it go and let it do its job and let it, see what happens. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of cool. But yeah, I think that covers it well for today. Is there any other thoughts you want to have before I end it here?
No, I mean, I feel like we have a lot more to say on this because there's a lot more that could be said.
This is the topic that keeps on giving.
Yes, but guys, I just want to encourage you that if you have a community or if you have the desire for a community, a lot of the things that become big, they start small.
Yeah.
And so if you want friends, let's say that you just want a marriage, you want a relationship, you want a group of friends. One of the most important things to do is just ask myself, okay, well, I want to go here. I need to be okay with humble beginnings. I'm just going to take one step at a time, right? Because when you're creating community, or if you're trying to create a relationship, I see this a lot. Especially in young adults groups, is that when somebody wants a community so bad, they try and force it, right? And forced community never sticks together.
Yeah.
Just be okay with the process. Enjoy the process. It's that's how things work. That's why it's called the process. Just be okay with things starting small, beginning slowly, happening slowly, and it'll happen over time. You don't make a big change by one decision. Like, you don't get into heaven with one decision. You can't say, I'm going to follow Jesus, and boom, you're in heaven. No, it's a constant, daily, small decision to say, Jesus, I want a relationship with you. God, what do you think? Holy Spirit, what should I do today? What do you want me to eat? Like, where do you want? It's a daily thing.
Yeah.
And so is creation of community, so just take your time, enjoy it. It's one of those things where you'll look behind you and you'll think, whoa, how did this happen?
Yeah. Goodness. Oh gosh. Help me. But yeah, that's cool. So I want to thank you guys for watching. It's been a lot of fun. We broadcast every week on Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll be live again this Monday at 4 p.m. where maybe Tim, we could talk about how do you handle difficult people in the community and kind of like go from like personal perspectives and stuff of that nature. I don't know. Just want to throw it out there. Okay. So we might do something like that. We might not, but I would like to do that. So we'll see. We'll just, when we get there, we'll figure it out. Either way, we will go over that topic. So we'll let you know exactly when it happens. But But anyways, we'll be live Monday, 4 p.m. And I want to just let you guys know that tonight at 7 p.m., we'll be having prayer night. So if there is anything that you would like for us to pray over, please let us know. We've got Discord, where we have a prayer request area on there. We've got, you can contact us via Facebook Messenger or thoughtrate@gmail.com. But however you like to go about it, let us know. We'd love to pray over whatever is on your heart and just pray peace over that and God's will. So let us know, and we will see you tonight, 7 p.m. See you soon. You guys have a good day.